Someone had to say it. Welcome back to Someone Had to Say It. On today's episode, I interviewed a colleague, matchmaker, and relationship educator, Andrea LaRosa. This is Andrea's second time in the podcast. She is the force behind Date Smarter Matchmaking, where love meets innovation. Her matchmaking business goes beyond traditional dating services, offering personal coaching, podcasts, courses, workshops, and tailored programs designed to elevate relationships. Andrea isn't just your average matchmaker. She is a relationship architect, transforming lives with her empathy, wisdom, services, and her book called Get the Girl, Dating the High Value Woman, which you can find on Amazon and on her website. We talked about her communication course, the skills singles and couples gain from going through her program, and why the idea of older men dating younger women is still so prevalent today and so common. You don't want to miss this episode. We went into all the controversial topics, as we always do. Enjoy, and don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and do all the things, as well as tell us your thoughts. Happy listening. Welcome back, everyone, to Someone Had to Say It. I am solo today because Heidi is on a writing deadline. So we're going to finish her book because I can't wait to read it. So today I have a very special guest and friend and colleague, Andrea LaRosa, who is also a matchmaker and coach. Although these days she's doing more coaching than matchmaking, and we'll get into that and the reason for all of it. So welcome to the podcast again.
Yay! I'm so glad that I'm a reoccurring guest.
Yes, I don't ask a lot of people to come back. I'm very big.
Now I feel really special.
Yeah, you should. We have a lot of conversations about our industry in general, and we're going to get into all of that. I feel like this needs to be like part one of many,
Right.
because there's really so much to talk about. And first, with people that are not familiar with who you are or haven't heard our podcast before, which I suggest they do, let's tell people a little bit about you, how you got into this business, and who you are. In your own words.
To sum it up,
Yeah.
I started my business with speed dating events, actually. I had just moved back to the States from living abroad, wanted a career change. So I started hosting speed dating events because the city I was in wasn't very good at it. And there was a need. There was definitely a need for it back then. And then I got certified in life coaching, NLP, relationship coaching, all the things.
All the things.
Moved into coaching because I realized that speed dating wasn't enough. People needed to be coached through. And my very first, I'm never going to forget this couple. One of the guys who was coming to my speed dating events consistently, I finally told him, hey, let me give you some advice. Sit down with all the women and make it all about them for the entire 7 minutes that you're in front of them. Don't talk about yourself. Just keep asking very thoughtful, inquisitive questions about them, or use like the icebreakers that are in front of you. So he did that. He was really attracted to this woman, but he's not the most charming looking. He's not 6 feet tall. He's not super built. And he came with his friend, and he is that guy. And so he really thought like, oh man, my friend's going to get her. And she actually told him yes, simply because he seemed really interested in getting to know her versus just trying to hit expectations and what you're supposed to say or what you're supposed to talk about or the questions you're supposed to ask that are so boring.
Yeah.
And
or
so
talking about yourself, which most people do, and they think the more they know me and everything about me, the more they're going to like me.
Yeah. Right. Not realizing that that's not how that actually works. And so long story short, they are now married, happily married. It was my big win. And that's what really pushed me into coaching. And then what pushed me into matchmaking was the fact that, okay, people aren't getting this. Like, I can do it for them. I could just send them out on dates. And so here I am, like 10 years later now, matchmaking, coaching, but I do not host speed dating events anymore. I do
Yeah,
consult for companies or businesses that want to host them, but I don't do them myself just because they're a lot of work. You know
they
that.
are. Well, I think any event that we put on is a lot of work. And it
Mhm.
used to take me a week to recover from whatever event it was, whether it was speed dating or just singles, mingles, events, workshops, anything. It's so,
Yeah.
so much work. And we have to tell people that you are actually in SLO, California. For those people that are not from California, we call SLO San Luis Obispo. We kind of
Right.
combine it all, which is it's a beautiful, I want to say sleepy little beach town,
Mhm.
but I love San Luis Obispo. I mean, who doesn't, right? But it is a small community. So you
Very
typically
small.
work with people that are in your area, and you used to only take on people that are in SLO, right? For matchmaking.
For matchmaking, but they had to be open to date outside the area because I needed to be able to collaborate with other matchmakers like yourself in order to set them up because you can't just pull from this town.
Yeah,
Most of our clients come to us after they've tried all the dating apps.
right. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I remember speed dating events were huge back in the day. And when they first came out, it was like this radical idea, right? You literally meet with someone, talk to someone for, I think some people did it for 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it is. I think 7 is probably the longest. And then you move on to the next person. And then you move on to the next person. And I know people were very nervous about that. Like, how much information can I throw out there in that 5 little minutes, right?
Right.
And I always said to people, less is better, not more.
Mhm.
Don't overwhelm them with, here's what I do, here's what I am, here's how many kids, it's too much. No, you're
Right.
there to get to know that person sitting across from you. You're supposed to
Yeah.
ask each other questions, not rattle on your whole life story. And
Right. I always
they
tell
didn't.
people talk about one topic. Just pick one thing and talk about it for that 5 minutes. And if you walk away thinking, that was interesting, I kind of would like to continue that, then you can
Right.
set up a date. It is not marriage. They have it in their head that I'm picking this person for marriage. You are not. You are choosing whether or not you want to continue a conversation and maybe go for a cup of coffee or a cocktail or whatever it is that you want to do for your first date. That's it. You're
Yeah.
not marrying them from a speed dating event.
Right. I think
You need
people
a date
just
first.
exactly. That's the thing. That's what I was going to say. You got to, I hate to say it's like a job interview, but in a way, you're getting to know them. Don't treat it like a job interview. Don't, list out all the questions literally. And I always have the funny story when I was dating back in the day, many, many, many decades ago. There was a guy that I got connected with. And the first time we talked to the phone, he literally said, "Hold on a second, let me go get my notebook." And I laughed, thinking, "Oh, it's a joke. He's got a list of questions for me, right?" He's like, "No, no, no, hold on. I got to go get my notebook with the questions." I was like, "Oh, wait, you're not joking." He's like, "No, I have very important questions for you." I was like, "Oh, God, this is not going to work." And he didn't, because I was
No.
like, "Okay, let's see where this goes." He went and got his notebook, and it was literally like a job interview down to, where are you born? Who are your parents? Where did you grow up? What do you do for work? And I was like, "Wait, what? Am I in a job interview?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, Ira, I gotta go." I think that's literally was his name. I hope Ira got married. I hope he got,
I'm sure he did eventually.
I don't know. It'd be nice, interesting to, I'm going to call the JCC because that's how we met. And ask, hey, did Ira ever get back to you guys, tell you he got married or not? But
Well, he
speaking of which,
probably found his match. She
I,
probably also showed up with a notebook full of questions and they fell in love.
I hope so. I hope that's what it was. And which brings me to the whole communication aspect, which is something that I absolutely love what you do, because part of your coaching and guidance is teaching them how to communicate, whether
Mhm.
it was a matchmaking client or now you strictly focus in coaching and guidance. But let's tell people a little bit about your communication courses, so to speak. It's almost like a workshop. I read your whole, when you were putting it together, your proposal, whatever you want to call it, and I thought, oh my God, this is so simple yet so poignant and so specific. Like,
Oh,
here's
yeah.
what you do, here's what you don't do. But I'll let you tell people more about it. Like, what?
It's funny because, and I'm sure you hear this from all your clients, when you ask them about their deal breakers, the thing I hear all the time is you have to be a good communicator. And then when I ask them, are you a good communicator? They always say yes. But I guarantee you they're not. And I'm not trying to be
Right.
mean about it, but simply for the fact that most people think I talk about my feelings, therefore I'm a good communicator. And
Mm,
that is a huge myth. You talking about your feelings does not make you a good communicator. The way that you become a good communicator is by being very effective and assertive in the way that you communicate, meaning that you are a really good listener. You're not just waiting for your turn to talk, which is what most people do because they want to get something out. So they're just like, it's my turn to talk.
Oh, let me talk
Uh,
over you. Like, what I
right,
just let
right,
me just jump in because I'm going to forget what I'm going to say, which I get
right.
it, but it's
And
so
it's very
wrong.
natural. It's very
Yeah.
natural. We do it naturally. And it's fine to do. It's not to say that you have to always wait your turn. You can. Like, it's fine to occasionally talk over people. It's when you are constantly doing it because you're not listening to them, because you just need to say what you need to say. And it's not necessarily in response to what the other person is saying, right? We do
Right.
it to each other, you and I, when we're agreeing or kind of chiming in with what the other person is saying, which makes sense. It shows like, oh, I'm listening to you. I'm hearing what you have to say. I'm processing it. Or interrupting to say, like, wait, 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 I'm so confused. I'm not
Yeah.
following, right?
Mm,
Because you need that clarification. So it's just like really looking at like, how are you listening to someone? How are you speaking to them? Are you sticking to the I feeling? I think, I feel. The biggest thing I tell couples is that your biggest breakdown in communication is that it is you and your partner against the problem. Your partner
mhm,
cannot be the problem in your relationship, or you don't have one. Maybe you leave. I don't know.
mm.
But the problem is like they come to me and they're like, my partner does this, or they do that, or they do this. And it's like, okay, well, let's take the problem and make it the problem. And you two sit together and come up with a solution to the actual problem and stop saying, well, my husband or wife doesn't do X, Y, and Z. So therefore they are the problem because all it does is create hostility.
Right.
And it's not
Yeah.
good communication. You stop communicating. You may be talking, but you're not communicating.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting because I always had this belief that sometimes, and well, I want to say a lot of the times, it's better to go to a coach and a relationship coach who knows what they're doing, obviously, than a therapist. Because even myself, I've been in a relationship for almost 3 decades now, 27, 28 years, however long it's been. And over the years, obviously, we've tried everything because a relationship is not always just straight, all
Right.
good. There's ups and there's downs. And I got to tell you, every therapist we've tried, whatever therapist whatever they specialized in, it wasn't as helpful as it is going to a coach who is not bound by the same rules and that little criteria. They can't step outside of that, the laws that therapists have to abide by, which, and I'm not saying that there's not no good therapists. There's great therapists. You just have to find the right one. But I think someone who is in the relationship world industry and a coach is obviously thinking outside the box too, and they're not bound by all the rules. Do you find that people come to you after they tried a lot of therapy or different therapists?
A lot of my clients are in therapy and are
Mm,
referrals from their therapists, actually, simply
yeah.
because therapy is great to get to the deep rooted issues, to look at what caused something, right? The childhood traumas, coaching is not designed for that. We don't get into your trauma. We don't get into your deep-rooted issues, you know. Coaching is to give you skills so that way you can walk away from coaching and, you know, whenever your program is finished and it's not lifelong, right? So you finish your program with your coach and you walk away with actual tools to do better, right? Tools to date better, tools to communicate better, tools to get the career that you're looking for, tools to be able to, you know, manifest the life that you want, right? Because there's so many different types of coaching out there. But coaches are not designed to sit down with you and to deep dive into your traumas or your
Right.
deep rooted issues. Our goal is to simply give you skills to practice, to hold you accountable for, so that way you can walk away from our program and effectively do whatever it is you've been trying to do, right? So that's a huge difference between the two, but they work really well together. They
Right.
definitely complement each other extremely well, and I always have therapists I refer out to and therapists that refer to me, and it's kind of a nice relationship to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done the same, and I definitely have the top ones that I refer to. And I always tell people you got to try out different coaches, different therapists, because it's not always a match, so to speak. And you have to find that right match, like in a relationship. So I think also this is why I love giving people either numerology charts before I take them on, is because it helps me to get to their underlining makeup, their DNA, so to speak.
Mm.
Because so far, and I remember, when I even ran it for you, most people, I would say 95% of people have come back with, wow, this has really resonated with me. This is so me, or this is definitely my child or parent, whatever it is. The ones that come back with, oh no, this is not who I am, this is not, I'm not like this, are, I believe, are people that just don't want to see the truth, or they're not
Mhm.
in that stage in their life yet, because this is really your entire life that I'm giving the numerology chart for. And that's a whole other podcast. But my point is, I like to run the numerology chart just to kind of get to know the person from their genetic disposition, so to speak.
Right.
And then we can kind of unpack everything, because that's a whole other conversation. Ooh, this is a topic, this is the area I need to focus on, or this is something I should stay away from, or I should watch out for this. So that was a big thing for me that was
Or
helpful.
even if they're resistant to it, like those
Yeah,
5% that are like, "No, that's not me," that tells you a lot about whether they're gonna be open to your coaching,
right.
and they're gonna
Exactly.
be able to hear you and be able to grow and move forward. If they're extremely resistant, so
Yep.
that tells
Yeah.
you a lot too.
Yeah, I just ran it for someone who wanted to become a client. And he's like, yeah, we need to talk about this because none of this is true about me. I'm like, oh, okay. Do I really want to take him on as a client? Because right off the bat, he's like, this is all bullshit. I was like,
Mhm.
well, okay, let's talk about this. What about this is bullshit? Which part? You're not materialistic, you're not controlling, you're not this, you're not what? Let's talk about it. So, but which reminds me also, I always wanted to ask you, there's a great story about someone who came to you to do something in your house, fixing something, and he decided to sign up for your communication, course. And I want to
Yep.
know how it's going, because his wife, you could tell the story, but he had like a deadline, right? Like his
Yeah,
spouse gave
he
him a
did.
deadline.
He
So talk
did.
about it.
He he came to my house to do a service. I don't wanna be too specific just in case. And, you know, as he's completing the service, like, I'm talking about what I do for a living, and then I'm a communication expert, and I coach and all the things. And he was saying like, "Wow, I wonder, like, if you can help me. My wife gave me a deadline. She's pretty much saying that she's going to leave me by
Wow.
spring if I don't learn how to communicate better with her." Um, it was a little uncomfortable. He started crying at my kitchen table, and I was just like, "Oh
Oh,
gosh, what do I do?"
wow.
um, And so I took him on as a client, and we've been working together every week since. So it's been quite a few months now. His wife no longer wants to leave him. They
Really?
just bought a
Wow.
new house together. So they're in the process of moving. But yeah, so really
Wow.
he's really taken everything that I've told him and worked on it. So
Mm-hmm.
he really is trying to be extremely mindful, and something that I see men do quite often. And I don't know why men do this more than women do, but when I give them like a skill to work on, like assertive communication styles, right? So I want you to start using more I statements and more questions. Ask questions, gain clarification when they say something. So what I hear you saying, I think, I feel, not you. Try to avoid the word using you, right? So I give him the
Mm-hmm.
skill to work on, and he goes so far overboard with it that she's
Oh,
like, "Is your coach giving you all this?" What the hell?
wow.
Eventually, you'll pull back a little bit and make it your own language, because in the beginning you don't know how to speak like that. That's not normal for most people to speak assertively, right? To say like, well, I think, or I feel, or ask clarifying questions of like, wait, did I hear that right? Did you really
Mm-hmm.
just say X, Y, and Z? um in the beginning it's very clinical sounding because they're learning. And so he did kind of go from being himself to sounding like a clinician to now being more comfortable with how to incorporate these skills into his own verbiage.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
would you say the biggest thing, like the biggest struggle that couples are going through in today's world is, I mean, obviously we're talking about communication, but
Mhm.
is it mostly asking the right questions in the right way and not pointing out the issues in that person, right? You do this, you're this, you, like you said, using I more than you. Do you
Right.
think, so I guess that is my question. What do you think is the biggest issues in today's world with couples that are having, because it's all about technology, it's all about social media. We're more connected, but we're more apart now.
Right.
Everything, people are in their phones all day long. I know so many of people that have come to me are just resentful of that he's always on his phone even when he's not at work, or she, or they're traveling, or this or that. But it's a lot of social media, it's a lot of technology. So would you say that is the biggest issue in today's world in terms of couples
Hmm.
Asian?
Yes. I would definitely agree that one of the biggest issues right now is that people aren't even connecting. So they have an issue, their partner does something that annoys them, they don't even talk about it. And
Mm,
it piles. You start the pile, right? And then that something else happens between the two of you. You're annoyed. That gets piled on again until things get so piled up that, for example, he leaves the toilet seat up one day and you blow up over it. And he's
yeah.
like, "What the hell just happened? What am I missing? I didn't mean to leave the toilet seat up. I'm so sorry." Because it's just piled on instead of addressing the issues. Say, for example, you both come home from work and the kids are screaming and they want to get fed. And he says, "Honey, what's for dinner tonight?" And you just get pissed because you're just like, "Why do I have to come up with what's for dinner? I worked all day too." Right. Instead, you
Right.
shove that down and you figure out something for dinner. Right. Instead of, honestly, in the moment, if you're bubbling, maybe it's not the good time to bring it up.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when you had some food in you and you've calmed down, you need to pull your partner aside then and say like, "I appreciate that you've worked all day. So have I. We should probably come up with a better plan for when this happens. So then that way it doesn't fall on me. And I feel really stressed because I can't come up with a dinner plan for everyone and I'm feeling alone. So maybe we can sit down ahead of time and figure out when these days are going to happen, what our plan will be. Maybe we just always order out those days and we
Mhm.
pull out the menus and we let the kids pick from the menus or whatever it is, right?
Right.
You can even turn it into something fun. Like I play the 3-2-1 game with my boyfriend whenever we can't decide what to order. So we
Oh,
pull
what's
out
that?
3 menus and he picks 3, I pick 2, he picks 1. Like it's fun. Problem
Until
solved.
you come up with the one that you both want. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Or take turns, like today
Yeah.
you pick next week I pick. And so
Exactly.
the same question goes for singles. What do you think is the biggest issue you're seeing in today's world that singles are facing
With
while dating?
communication,
With communication, with dating, just in that whole realm world. I'm sure
they're
there's more
only
than one.
thinking their point of view.
Mm,
So when they go into dating, all they're thinking about is their checklist, their goals, right? They're not thinking about the other person. They're not communicating with the other person to say like, "Hey, what are you thinking? What do you want out of this? What are you looking for?" Right? We do hate that question of like you meet someone on a dating site, you go on a first date and they ask you like, "So, what are you looking for?"
yeah. It's
It's a cliche question, but you know what? Isn't that better than them just sitting there asking you, like, well, what's your job? Do you make 6 figures? Do you own a home? Do you plan to own a home? Do you have a car? What kind of car do you have? Right? That's them doing that
right. Or
checklist.
or
Like,
talking about themselves the entire time. At least they're asking
right.
questions.
Exactly. So really think of it from the other person's point of view and maybe don't judge them for something they say or maybe they misspeak about in
Hmm.
that moment. Because for one, people are nervous when they're out dating.
Right.
It's not like it's fun for everyone. A lot of us, yeah, sure. When I was out dating, I loved it. It was a great time. I had so much fun. But also, I'm an expert at this. Like, I made it my
Right.
career to be an expert at this. Not everyone has that kind of confidence when they're out dating, especially those first couple dates, right? When you're just trying to get to know them and maybe they're really attractive and it's making you even more nervous or you've
Mhm.
listened to some really bad like YouTube videos that talk about how to play the game that doesn't work for you because it's not your flirting style and so now you just look awkward and strange and they're creeped out.
Yeah. That's never good.
I'm
Yeah.
making dating sound so exciting.
Well, you have to make it your own, basically. That's
Mhm.
what it is. You have to be comfortable, and you don't just get comfortable, just overnight. It takes practice.
Oh,
So, in that, I guess with all of the people that you have worked with, do you truly believe, and I ask everybody this, and I know what I
ooh.
think, but I'm curious about what you think. Well, I guess give me a personal and your professional opinion. Do you
Okay.
truly believe people can change? Like truly?
I think they can grow. I think there's a very big difference. I think people are meant to grow. And so it causes change, right? It's cause and effect pretty much. When you grow, you do change, but you're still truly the same person at heart.
Right.
Your authentic, genuine self that's deep down in there, right, isn't always what you present, even though you think it is. We kind of hear it a lot, right, in our field. I want someone to just love me for who I am. Okay, well, are you showing up as your most authentic self, truly?
Mm,
And how do you know? Well, do you have self awareness? Are you being really honest with yourself when you talk about your beliefs or your values? Or are you just saying things in hopes that someone will like you?
mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of self discovery to really know whether or not you are being authentic in a moment. I mean, we all have it. I have moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm bullshitting someone right now. This sucks. But it
That's
takes a
funny.
lot of awareness to get to that point to be like, "Ah, dang it, I did it again."
Yeah. But it's so hard because there's that line people are riding, walking, whatever you want to call it, when you're dating and you're just starting to get to know someone. You want them to like you. So you're
Mhm.
kind of tiptoeing a little bit, but you also want the real answers and you want to ask the questions that are important to you, but you don't want to offend them. I think if I'm out there dating in today's world, obviously it's a world of difference, because I feel like I'm dating with each client that I have. And I've
You kind of are.
seen over the 20 years that I've been doing this, more than 20 years, and since I've been dating, God, it's a whole different world now. The things that we can't ask now that we asked all the time back in the day, or the things we talked about, right? Being politically correct and being understanding and sympathetic and empathetic. It's a whole different world. And that
Mhm.
takes a lot of, juggling as well. It's hard.
It's extremely difficult to stay in your lane nowadays,
Mhm.
of knowing, like, where are the boundaries for this? Where do I go? Can I kind of swerve a little bit in my lane, or do I need to, be a straight shooter and just stay straight down this? I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to say, right? There's no
Yeah.
right or wrong answer around it. It's just a matter of, how do you show up when you show up? Whether it's on a first date, whether it's with a client, whether it's with a friend. Like, do you show up authentically? Do you listen? Do you have compassion for where someone else is coming from? Right? Like, when you
Right.
talk about those political correctness, when we talk to our clients now, we have to be very cautious that we are extremely politically correct. And every once in a while, you might say something that's not, and someone gets extremely offended, and that is fine. But then
Yeah.
we have to educate. We can't shame. Just have to educate of, this is why this is offensive to me, and hope that the other person is open and accepting of, like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. I'll be more mindful to
Yeah.
not use that language anymore.
Yeah.
That's great communication, but that's not how we talk to each other.
Right, exactly. And
Unfortunately.
I think a lot of people are also tired of having to educate others, right? About why it's not okay to say this, why it's not okay to think that, or I guess you can think it, but you don't say it. And I'm wondering, in your service, in your practice too, because I know I deal with this and I've dealt with this for many years. Whatever I'm thinking typically just comes out. I've learned to have a filter, but it's hard
Yay.
because and then when I hear people say certain things to me, it's really hard not to react, and I wonder, you're a lot more tactful than I am. I've learned, we've learned that already over the years. And especially after going through the group chats in our matchmaking group, I just jump on, like, what the hell do you mean by that? And you're very tactfully replying, like, do you think maybe it would be better? I'm like, what the hell do you mean? But it's really hard, I think, for people. And maybe it's an age thing too. I feel like the older I get, the more it's hard for me to learn new things, right? And to be more tactful and understanding. And it's never meant with being derogatory to someone. It's just, I'm at a point in my life, and I know a lot of my clients over a certain age feel the same way. I'm too old to learn new, pronouns,
Mm.
learn this, a new whatever labels, whatever you want to call it, identifying things. I just can't do it, and I'm exhausted. I was on a date with a girl, and I said girl instead of woman, and that was it. Or I said this and I said that, and how do you deal with that personally and professionally? How do you tell people of a certain age?
Yeah, that's pretty common, and I hear my mom say that as she's aging as well, of, like, "This is just
Mm.
so hard. I don't know." And, like, I've seen my mom and my niece get into it over, like, political correctness of certain conversations, and, having
Yeah.
to be the middle person that says, like, "Well, maybe we can educate instead of shame." So, first of all, you know what? We're tired of teaching people, but if you want them to know the information, then we have to teach them. So you can't
Right.
have both. You can't just magically know something. And when we think about baby boomers, for example, they grew up in a very different generation than millennials or Gen Zers or betas or alphas. I think those are what they're
E-
called nowadays.
yes.
I think we've cycled through.
Yes.
Um, so it's really challenging because change now is happening so fast. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable is not just global, but it's personal preference. Like your example of someone being called a girl.
Right.
That's offensive to some women. Don't call me a girl. I'm not a girl. I'm a woman. Some others are like, well, GURL, call me that, right? Because it's got an intonation of girl, right? It's
Right, right,
not
right.
GIRL. So there's a difference in how you use certain words and how it's perceived. And some people don't like that word. And for them to just say, like, I understand that's commonly used, but I just prefer not to be called that. That's the way we should be communicating. Not this
Right.
aggressive, don't call me that. Okay.
Yeah. Or
Calm
just
down.
stop speaking to them and never
Right.
explain why, because they will continue
Exactly.
using those words and saying those things. They don't
Right.
know what they did wrong. And what's going to happen is they're just going to say, oh, they just not a right match for me. They didn't like me. Or they'll be thinking there's another reason why this person never called them back. So I think you're right.
Right.
We should.
And if you're out dating and you're doing this and you're doing it over and over and over and over again, and you're wondering, why am I still single? Maybe you need to turn around and look at what is happening on all of these dates. Are you getting annoyed by little things? And how important is it that someone uses that, just to go back to the girl thing, because it's kind of
Yeah.
an insignificant term,
Mhm.
right? It's an easy fix. And I'm sure some of your listeners are probably going to get pissed off being like, it is not insignificant. I don't ever want to be called a girl. I'm a woman. All right. You know what? That's fine. But then correct someone respectfully, correct them. Don't be a bitch about it. You don't need to say, like, don't ever call me that, or I'm going to ghost you now because you called me a girl.
Yeah, we're done. I'm leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead, simply say, I appreciate that you're trying to, whatever, be close to me and use common phrases, but that doesn't work for me. It doesn't make me feel good. I would appreciate it if you didn't call me that. Done. And if they continue to call you girl, then obviously, yes, then fine. It's not meant to
Then
be,
you're
but
done. Yeah.
then
Or
you
if
can be
they
done.
Right. Or if they simply do not understand and they get upset by you correcting them, then you know that's not the right person for you. I think
Right.
it's important to see what the reaction is like, right? Like to me, it's almost like a test. How are they going to respond to what I just relayed to them? Are they going to accept it and think about it and think, oh, okay, thank you. Let me
Right.
learn from this. So, and it's interesting whenever I've had clients, which I'm sure you have too, who do that, right? When you correct them or you educate them and you teaching them something new, the response, I'm always surprised by who I think is going to have what kind of response, right?
Right.
Do you ever think someone comes to you, like, oh, this is going to be the easiest client ever. She is very open and they say that they like learning, they want to be educated, and then it's like a switch goes off and they
Yes.
respond completely the opposite way. Have you had that?
Almost every single client.
Really? So you thought it'd be
Because
one way?
I think what happens is they come to us with this idea of, I want to be really open. I want to, because, my matchmaking program always includes coaching as well. And
Mhm.
sometimes they just refuse to take advantage of the coaching. They just will not make time for those sessions.
Yeah, I
And I
don't need
tell them,
it.
like, it's
I don't need it.
really
I'm good.
important for you to be able to understand, like, what it is you're looking for, because clearly what you've been doing doesn't work. So if you keep doing that, it's still not going to work. No one's going to wave a magic wand and have Prince Charming knock down your door for you, or Princess
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
So yes, like, it's just this constant issue of, the client comes in and says, like, I want to be open, and I have deal breakers that feel very real, value based. And then you send them on their first match, and then they come
Yeah.
back with, oh no, absolutely not. I cannot date someone who drives a BMW or whatever it is, whatever stupid thing it is. And you're just like, wait, I'm sorry. You didn't say that was a deal breaker, because if you had, I probably wouldn't have taken you as a client, because that's
Right.
not what I do. I don't
Yeah.
box check. I help
Well,
people find a real true connection, and what car they drive has nothing to do with that.
Well, I think it's everything. I just posted something the other day about women absolutely refusing to date men that don't have a degree or at least an undergrad. I've had female clients who said, I went to school, I got a PhD or I got a double master, whatever. I need him to have at least a master's. Well, what does you having it have to do with him? And they
Right.
think that they're going to be super intelligent and have common sense. And, college degree does not equal common sense. A college degree does not equal good person. College degree
No.
does not equal he's going to be good to you, whatever it is. And, I always tell them, would you rather have someone who can fix just about anything in the house and has a good heart and is a good person and is good to you, or someone who is going to be panicking every time something breaks, has no common sense, but he's got a PhD in whatever? Like, you can find all of that in, every person. And I think it's so ridiculous when people talk about, I will not date someone without a degree, I will not date a blue collar worker, or this or whatever you're talking about, cars. I've had people say, I will not date an attorney because I've had such a bad experience. You've had one bad experience with a lawyer, so now they're all off
Right.
hand, off mark, off, what is the word? Off you
Off.
list, whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just
We're all
so
crossed off.
ridiculous. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's ridiculous.
You have a really good point, though. A lot of our clients, especially, come in and say, "I will not date blue collar workers," right? Because they need to make six figures plus in order to, live the lifestyle I want. There are differences to your example of you have to be educated. I'm double mastered. Doesn't make me intelligent. I chose the two easiest masters in the world. So, like, who cares? And actually, it doesn't make me very smart because now I'm in debt up to my eyeballs in student loan debt because I decided to do two master's degrees instead of like maybe a PhD program. Who knows?
Yeah.
Point is, it doesn't make you smart being educated, right? You can have intelligence and not have a formal education. So that's what you have to look at, right? What are you really asking for when you want someone with that master's degree because you have a PhD? Do you just want them to have intelligent conversation with you? Do you want to come home after work and be able to sit down and have dinner, have a glass of wine, and talk about world events?
Right.
That is probably what you're looking for. He
Mhm.
doesn't need to have a master's degree to be able to do that. He has to be intelligent and he has to have an interest in it as well. That's all.
And
So if
read
we could,
once in a while.
yeah,
Read a book,
if
read the
right, if we can
newspaper.
get people to be a little bit more specific on what actually is what they're looking for. Why does he have to have a master's degree? Why won't you date a blue collar guy? So you date a white collar guy who has his MBA, runs his CEO, runs his own company, but is never home, never there to support you. When you want to talk to him, he doesn't listen to you, and possibly cheating on the side because he travels so much. I
Right.
mean, this is like worst case
Let's
scenario,
just throw that in there.
right? Let's just throw it all out there.
Yeah.
Versus that blue collar guy who, yeah, you know what? Maybe he doesn't make as much as you do, and you have to consider that. But he loves you truly. He respects you. He communicates well with you. He when he comes home from work, he asks you how your day was. He helps with the cooking and cleaning. He helps take care of the kids. He comes up with date night ideas. Tell me that doesn't sound more appealing.
Right. Exactly. I think that is why coaching is so important. Coaching and guidance, whatever word you want to use for that. And when people are so against it, I just don't understand it. And that's where my burnout from this, business has been, is because these people that just push back so much against coaching. I mean, you can always learn something new and figure out why you don't want this or why you want certain things. We're here for you. I always tell people, I'm not doing this for my benefit. I'm doing this for your benefit. I don't give a flying fuck, if you want this or this or that. But I'm here to help you. You paid the money. or you want to pay someone to help you with this issue, why not take advantage of everything that we have to offer? And
Mhm.
in the same thought goes for, I don't understand how there's so many matchmakers who do not coach. They just set people up. And I've worked with a lot of them. And I no longer will provide matches for those that don't do coaching, because I've had dates go really awry because
Oof.
they don't coach. And I mean, there were some instances where my client was crying on the phone with
Oh
me,
my god.
blaming me, because of course, I provided the match. So,
Right.
and there was one instance where I will never forget. She still won't speak to me, and she blames me for it 100%, which, had I known that the other matchmaker does not do any coaching, I wouldn't have provided a match for her. But basically, she showed up to the date. She drove an hour and a half to LA from Orange County, from like South
Mhm.
Orange County, to meet the guy for drinks, dinner, whatever it was. And when she got there, obviously he didn't like what he saw, because they don't show pictures. And he was so offended by what she looked like, which she looked great. She was maybe the same age, maybe a couple years younger than him. But this was, again, a wealthy older man asking
Mhm.
for much younger women, which, we see all the time. He was
Right.
so disappointed. As soon as she sat down, she hadn't even ordered a drink or food or anything. He made up an excuse and said, "I'm sorry, I have to go. My kid, my grandkid, whatever, I gotta go." And he left her in the restaurant. Now, she had just driven an hour and a half. Because this was a paying client of another matchmaker, she set up the whole date. And I had no idea that my client, a woman, would be driving an hour and a half to Beverly Hills or wherever in LA. I would never have allowed that. And then he just left. She was in tears. She called me in tears. "I'm hungry, I'm tired, and this guy just left." She said it was
Oh
so
my god.
embarrassing on top of it. Can you imagine a guy just makes a fit and just walks out as soon as you sit down? Awful.
Wow.
It
That
was
is
it was bad.
that's disgusting behavior in my opinion.
Yeah.
Disgusting. If one of my clients had pulled that, oh my gosh. I probably, as the matchmaker, as his matchmaker, would have contacted your client to personally apologize to her, and probably would have sent her a gift basket with all kinds of like goodies, maybe gift cards. I just would have showered her with love and gifts, just to say like, I'm so, so sorry. I can't believe that happened. I'm so embarrassed. But also, I guess the matchmaker doesn't even care that that happened.
Exactly. She did call her. She apologized, but I will never work with that matchmaker again. And I told her, you really should consider doing some coaching with these people. Yeah, yeah, we really should. Just never thought this would happen. What are you talking about? We're in Southern California. This is LA. This happens all the time. You
I
take
have
on
rules for my clients.
exactly.
I have very strict expectations. So if they want to go on a date, because I also do blind dates, and I tell them these are blind dates, meaning that we've done our due diligence. If you show up and he or she does not look the way that you're expecting them to, it's because we saw something deeper. We see a
Right.
possibility for a deeper connection. This is what you're doing. So we do an activity, we do day dates. So we do an activity and then maybe they go for lunch or go for drinks or something like that afterwards. They are not allowed to leave early.
Yeah, and it shows your character. I mean, this is
Yeah.
literally everything I told the matchmaker. It shows his character. I tell my clients the same thing. You would never, ever leave someone. I did a long time ago before I had all these rules. There was an incident where a guy showed up after the woman. She was already there. He saw her, and that was one of the instances where I didn't show pictures because I think it would be better. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But
Mhm.
he showed up, he saw her through the window, apparently didn't like what he saw, and left, and then told me she didn't show up. He lied and told me she didn't show up because he knew I was going to be fuming. And she's
Mm.
calling me from the restaurant, "Julia, I'm here. He's not here." it's been 10 minutes, 15, 20. She waited for like a half an hour. I mean, I felt terrible. But unfortunately, it happens a lot. But when you hire a
It
matchmaker,
does.
these things should not be happening. Obviously, there's rules to follow.
But we can't control people. It did happen to me once when I first started matchmaking. He was sitting outside. They were meeting at a location, and I had him there was outside seating. So I told him, just sit outside so you're easier to find. And she was texting me saying that like she was driving by, she didn't see him. She said she waited for like 10 minutes. He was early. He even sent me a picture of himself in the location to say, like,
Wow.
I've been sitting here for like 30 minutes. I don't know. And she was like, well, I also couldn't find parking, so I just left. I'm driving home. And I told her she was the database, he was the client. We told her we cannot ever use you again. And she
Yeah.
got so upset. And I was like, you cannot do that to people. We are a matchmaking company. We are not in this ghosting. Like, this is not okay behavior. This is why you're single.
Right.
And we never used her again.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
blacklisted her from our
You know,
profiles.
yeah, and it's unfortunate because it's always going to happen, but I can't
Mhm.
imagine my own children doing that. Even like the thought of my 19-year-old wouldn't even do that. At least give that person the decency to me to talk. You never know where it could turn. Maybe they'll just be a good friend. Maybe they know someone that they can introduce you to. Just having good character, and so it is
Right.
unfortunate it does happen, but I think the funniest thing that I wanted to talk about is how I always know whenever I see a post in one of our groups, and I think it's so funny, but not funny that this happens about these wealthy men. The matchmakers take them on, they promise them the world, which I'm always very honest. No, you're not going to get someone of childbearing age at 60. That's just for what reason, for what purpose. But there's a lot of people and a lot of matchmakers that will take on men much older. And then, I will respond with something very sarcastic, which is so inappropriate. But I'm trying to change that cycle. We're perpetuating the cycle of, that it's okay for men to date much younger women, but here women can't even get a date with the same age man,
Right.
you know? And how often do you see that where you are, even in your area? Do men still come to you and ask for much younger women?
I have the opposite problem here. I have
Hmm.
women coming to me and wanting to date younger men.
Wow. Oh, I
So
got
women
someone
in
I'm
their
like
40s
20.
and 50s looking for men in their 30s. And it, look, I can't lie, like I was that person for a
Really?
long time. I dated 10 years younger constantly because I felt young. I looked younger at the time. Now I'm starting to look my age, but like at that point I looked really younger. I was the same way until I realized, like, what am I doing? None of these guys want to commit to anything. We're not in the same place in life. We're just not. Because I do truly believe that women do develop sooner than men. And so we do want to get things in order and lined up earlier in life than men do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it is. But when you have a 45-year-old woman who's now divorced with 2 kids coming to a matchmaker to say, like, I want to date up to 44, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think a 32-year-old man wants to date a woman who is more than 10 years older than him, even though you look great, you're sexy, you keep up, like you look amazing, but your lifestyles don't match up. You have 2
Yeah.
kids, he doesn't even have any. He wants his own kids. Are you open to have more kids at that age? Are you going to be able to have more kids at that age? It's not to say that you can't, but like, you know, are your lives like even remotely aligned at that point? That's what you
But
have to really look at. It can't just be
compatibility
about the
and
number. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why the older 60-year-old men looking for like 30-something-year-old women works still, simply for the fact that those are the women who want a man to just take care of them And they will love that man simply for the fact that she doesn't have to work. She can have kids. She can have nannies. She can go shopping. She can have the lifestyle that she wants to have. So their lifestyles do match up in that case.
Right. For a lot of them. Yeah. I always think that it's so I shouldn't speak. Obviously, my husband's 11 years older than me, but I wasn't looking for that. When I met him, he was I don't want to say he was broke, but he wasn't broke, but there was definitely no money there. There was, like he always says, there was a potential of a lifestyle, but it wasn't that. It just happened. And I always think about, what do you have in common with someone
Mhm.
who's that much older? What do you talk about? And look, if it works, great. But I think a lot of these men need to understand that, and I've had this conversation with older men. They're looking for a lifestyle. Do you understand that? And some will say, no, they're not. They're going to love me for me. And others will say, yeah, I get it, and I don't mind. Let them use me
Right.
for the lifestyle, because I'm also using them for, their youth and
Arm candy.
exactly. I didn't want to say that, but yes. So, and it is unfortunate, but this is what I tell women that come, and they're complaining about this disparity, that there's still such a big difference. Why is it okay for men to date younger, but why can't I? I'm like, well, this is the world we live in still, and probably it'll always be this way. It's unfortunate, but I just always think, what do you talk about? Even with my own husband, like the music taste in general, like he wants to listen to freaking, I don't know, Hall and Oates or whatever. And I'm like, ew, like it just,
Wow.
or whatever, he
That's
loves
old
60s.
school.
Yeah, I love 60s, whatever, 70s music. And I'm just like, I mean, what? Besides like the Beatles and Rolling Stones and all that. But there's some, like, if I had to sit through another Journey concert, like, I will shoot myself. I'm sorry. I'm good for one song, maybe two, but after a while, it's just like we're aligned in so many of these, cultural things, right?
Right.
Plus, having been in Soviet Russia, we're behind by 20 decades anyways, so we didn't even have refrigerators, when
Oh
America
my God.
got refrigerators, microwaves. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. Have you kind of focusing now on more coaching, right? Not
Mhm.
matchmaking. You're not taking on matchmaking clients anymore, right?
We will take on men. I'm completely full with women right now, so I can't take on any more women really. We have a wait list, and I'm referring them out mostly. But I can take on guys because I have a slew of women in all age groups that are looking for dates. So no problem there. But mostly because I want to coach, because I want people to understand, first of all, why are you still single? Like, have you been single for a long time? Or are you just, and this happens as well, are you just getting out of a marriage, not even divorced yet, and you're hiring a matchmaker to set you up? There's a big disconnect there. There's a
Yeah.
problem that we need to look at. I also think you need to go to therapy because you probably got some other shit you got to work through. But also, why are you jumping from relationships so fast? What are you afraid of? You don't want to be alone. You're afraid that if you don't find someone today, that you'll never find someone because you're getting older. Like, what is the fear there? Coaching
Mhm.
can really help work through that, right? And really see, like, what am I looking for? Not to mention those who are coming out of relationships, especially long-term marriages, you tend to go back to dating the way that you did before that marriage. So if you got
Yeah.
married at 23 and you're getting divorced at like 43, your brain naturally goes back to that 23-year-old version of how to date because that is the last time that you actually did that. And that
Mm.
is not how you can date. You cannot date like a 23-year-old when you're 43. Dating looks differently in general now,
Yeah.
but a 43-year-old is not the same. So you can't date the same way. And so it's teaching them how to really look at, what do I want? What do I want my next relationship to look like? Because it can't look like my past relationships. Or if I've been perpetually single and just dating, 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 and I can't get into a relationship and I'm going, why? What's going on? I have to look at my past. I have to look at like, what happened? Do I have a bad picker? Do I need to fix this? We tend to be attracted to what feels familiar, but what feels familiar could be really toxic.
Yeah.
Because it's familiar doesn't make it healthy. So it's really helping people move through that and understand that I need to fix some things, right? I need to really look at myself. I need to bring in some self-awareness, and I need to have some growth so that I can attract the right person this time. And I am attracting a healthy partner, somebody who is going to love and appreciate me genuinely, and I will love and appreciate them.
Mm-hmm.
You can do
Yeah.
so much more with coaching, is my point.
Yeah, that's why I'm always so adamant about people doing it, even if they think they don't need it. Let's just try it, just for shits and giggles, Let's just try it. Let's just see how it goes, because you may think you're ready for this, but I guarantee you're not. Or there's still things like you said, there's still past behavior that's still there, and you keep doing the same thing over and over again. And it's interesting, as you were talking, I was thinking about someone who reached out to me, not too long ago. And the first thing she started saying is, I've been alone for a long time. I raised my kids alone. They're now adults. I'm in my, whatever, late 50s, whatever it is. I don't need a man. I'm very happy being alone. But yet you're coming to me and you're telling me that
right.
you're like, it's like, okay, so why are you here? Why are you talking to me? You just told me I'm very happy being alone. I've been alone for a long time. I raised my boys alone. I'm independent. I'm this, I'm very happy. Okay. And, like, so it's so confusing to me. And then I tried to get to the bottom of it. Like, okay, well, why are you here? Why do you need a matchmaker? Why are you even looking for someone? You seem to be very well adjusted and happy. And, I'm lonely and I'm getting older. And I figure, like you said, if I don't find somebody now, I don't want to be single in my 60s or 70s looking for someone, because it just makes it that much harder. You're not doing this for the right reasons. Let's unpack
Right.
all of this.
I see it all the time, like when I'm cruising through Instagram, all these reels and these memes out there saying like, I'm okay being single, I'm strong and independent, and I'm, in it. I hear podcasts talk about it. There's just, it's everywhere. It's huge right now, of men and women saying like, I'm okay being single. And that is fine if you truly, truly are okay with being single. But most people at the root of it are not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you take that person who's like, I am really comfortable being single, and you say, okay, well, I have this perfect person for you, but you don't want it because you want to be single, right? And
Right.
all of a sudden they're like, no, 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 I'll take it. And it's like, well, I thought you liked your single life. I don't want to interrupt your single
Right.
life. No, 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 no. I want to meet this person. You never know. I mean, I can change. Bullshit.
Right. I
You're
can
trying to
change.
convince yourself you're okay being single because it hurts. It does. It's painful to think that there isn't anyone out there that wants to love me. That's what single people end up thinking after a while of, is there no one out there who wants to be in a relationship with me? And so to protect ourselves, we stop wanting that. And we just say, I'm okay with being single, because that is better for my ego than thinking, oh, someone doesn't want to be with me. There's no one out there that wants to love me, which is so not true. There are plenty of
Right.
people out there that want to love you. You have to give them a chance.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, it's giving someone a chance. And the fact that people think that dating sucks now. There's nobody out there. I hear it all the time. I mean, I was on a video call yesterday with someone that it wasn't even about dating and relationships. This is a completely different topic, completely different thing. And the first thing she brought up is that she hates the dating scene, and she's like in her early 30s. She's like, it's absolutely atrocious out there. It is so hard, it's so bad. And the eye rolling and the negativity, it's, you can't go into it with such a negative outlook, thinking
Right.
everybody's bad, every site is bad, every online dating site, every match, every this. It's like, well, yeah, that's why you're not meeting anyone. It's
Right.
way too much negativity, and you're attracting that. You attract what you put out there. So I think it's important for people to remember. First, you have to have a good positive attitude about it, and you have to be in it, and you have to believe that there's right people out there. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of coaching, guidance, therapy. Do whatever you got to do, and work on yourself first. So,
Yeah.
in fact, I
You
even
have
send
to
my
be better in order to attract better.
yes, yes, that's huge. And I was just going to say that I even send my husband to you. And, I'm very open about, our own relationship and everything, because you can't expect, a relationship of 27, 28 years to be perfect. And even just with him talking to you one time, he was like, he gained some insight. I think it's about hearing things from another person,
Mhm.
because me being in this industry, obviously this is all he hears, right? Me critiquing the dates and coaching people on what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and I feel like it's become kind of like just background noise for him, you know what I mean?
All relationships, we all do that to each other.
But especially with us, too, that we're like the experts. So when you hear it from someone else, it's like, oh, okay. And I'm not saying that I don't have a lot to learn either. I'm not the easiest to live with. I get that. But it's interesting how much of it goes back to our childhood too, which I feel like that could be a whole other hour on just that. And I never fully believe that. But do you, I guess that is my last question is, do you truly believe that everything goes back to your childhood and how you were raised and how your parents
Ooh.
fucked you up?
You know, I do think that it tracks back to something, right? Maybe not necessarily childhood. Full disclosure, I've been in therapy in and out of therapy throughout my entire life just to kind of see it. I was currently with a therapist who everything that I brought up, she kept trying
Oh,
to push back to my childhood. And I was like, no, I'm sorry,
mm,
but not everything is from my childhood. I, it makes people sound like you're broken. Like people are broken when we say like everything
mm,
that we do wrong is stemming from childhood. Yes, there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. A lot of things could have happened to you in your 20s, your 30s, yesterday. That can impact you, right? It's a matter of yes. Do you wanna sit down and look at what's causing this and really try and figure it out? Sure. But also, you can work with a coach and look at what is the behavior? What is the behavior currently? Do we need to know where it stems from for me to work with you? Nope. Like, sure, if you wanna work through that, then yeah, go to therapy and get to the root of that, whether you think it's childhood or not. But like for a coach, we just want to look at what the behavior is currently and what the outcome behavior is going to be and help you get from current behavior to outcome behavior. That's what we do. I
mm,
don't think everything comes from childhood. I think a lot of it does because it shapes who we are as adults.
right.
But if you're someone in your 40s, things that you went through in your 20s are shaping you. Things that you went through in your 30s are shaping you. And it
Right.
can change because it happens over and over and over and over again, and it can dismiss what happened in your childhood. You can grow up in this beautiful childhood and then in your 20s have multiple bad experiences in relationships. And now, like, your family's looking at you in your 40s, like, why are you still single? What the hell happened? We showed you
Yeah.
how to do this. Like, your siblings are all married, and your father and I are married, or whatever it is, right? And yet you're
Yeah.
just like, you're broken or you feel broken because you had bad experiences in your 20s. So, like, no,
Mhm.
I don't think everything stems from childhood, but I do think there is a lot that does.
Yeah, there's some of it at least. But it's interesting because I did a workshop for women with this coach who well, one day she just woke up and decided she's going to be a coach because she found love finally in her, I want to say it was her early 50s. She was never married, never had kids, and she did a lot of work and realized why. And then she met someone and she was very happy. And therefore, she decided she can be a coach to other women.
You
There's a lot of people that, that do that.
know
So,
how I feel about those.
right. But
That
the thing
doesn't make you
is,
qualified.
correct. Your past history. Yeah, we have a whole thing about how we met. You want to listen to the other podcast of how we met through another coaching group, and the shenanigans that were going on in there.
Right.
But this was a while ago. This was over 15 years ago, and I learned a lesson. I didn't do a lot of background on her. I didn't know her very well. She came to me with this idea of doing this workshop for women. And I agreed because I'm always wanting to help. And every time that throughout the entire her portion of this workshop, whenever someone had a question or whenever there was an issue or anything she talked about, she would bring it back to, how was your relationship with your father? Every single thing. And towards the end of it, I was like, dude, I can't listen to this crap anymore. Every single thing is because of your dad.
Wow.
Everything she went back. Obviously, she had daddy issues.
Because
Obviously,
that
she
was
had
hers. Right.
it was hers.
Right.
But so then at the end, we took questions, and people would raise their question, ask a question about whatever was going on in their dating life, relationship, and she's like, "Well, tell me about your relationship with your father." And I finally turned around and it just went, enough. Like, this is clearly have nothing to do with it. And even if it does, can we get past it? Can we talk about how we can help this person on their journey? And she got so mad at me because I was disagreeing with her at the end of it, that she went off on me after. And she said how
Eee.
it was so disrespectful. I said, listen, I was trying to be respectful for the 2 hours that you spoke. I mean, this whole thing was supposed to have been 2 hours.
Wow.
And I learned a big lesson to be very careful who I team up on what I do, the things that I do is so. But I have so many more questions, but we'll save it for next time because I know we could talk about this forever. I just want to leave people with some words of wisdom. If you have
Oh boy.
anything you want to leave them with, and also how to reach you, I will put everything in the show notes as well, your website, everything.
Yeah. I mean, date smarter matchmaking is the best way to find me. And like you said, you'll put it in the show notes. So I'll give you all the handles, right? Because you got to be on all the things nowadays. Um,
Yes.
the words of wisdom, if you get nothing else, is to one thing you can try and do is just be aware of the other person's perspective.
Mm,
Just try and bring awareness to when you are communicating with a boss, with a friend, with a partner, a loved one, doesn't matter who it is. Try to look at it from their point of view, because that is the biggest communication breakdown, is that you might be telling me something and I'm not understanding. And so we're fighting and we're arguing about it, and we're actually fighting over the same thing.
mm,
But because the language you're using and the language I'm using, we're not hearing each other. We're not seeing the other person's point of view. And then at the end of it, we realize, oh, we're actually on the same page. Just kidding.
mm.
So, if
Yeah.
nothing else, if you struggle with trying to be a good active listener or see someone's body language shift, or even try and be an assertive communicator when you speak, if nothing else, just try and think of it from the other person's point of view. I think that
Mhm.
will teach more compassion. And I think that's what we're really lacking right now.
I agree. And I think we have to remember that we all communicate different. And
Yes.
just because you think you heard it one way does not mean this is how they meant it, because we all communicate in a weird way. And I know even with my clients, sometimes I have to stop and think about how are they communicating, because I may be saying it in one way and they're understanding it, completely different. This
Right.
thing with my personal relationships too. I know to communicate different with one kid versus the other, because one
Exactly.
does a lot better with tough love, like, do this, don't back out, you're good, you could do this, toughen it up, you could do it. The other kid, I cannot talk to him like that. he needs more of that loving, gentle approach. So
Mhm.
I think we have to realize, I never liked that whole 5 love languages thing, because I think we have a lot more than 5, and it changes and it varies. But I think we have to learn how the other person comprehends things, how they maybe are communicating different than we do. So, but yeah,
Right.
that's a whole other topic. I feel like we can
That's a
keep
whole
talking
other
more.
hour.
Now let's keep going. Why not? We're already on the topic. So, no, anyway. So, well, first of all, thank you so much for being here again.
Absolutely.
I
I love
love
it. I
having you
love
on.
coming on your show.
Yes, and I love having you on. I think we're very much aligned, but I also learned from you as well, because you kind of taught me to calm the fuck down a little bit sometimes, because I can be very, quick to respond. There's always something we can learn from other
Mhm.
people. So I think that's
Absolutely.
so important. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. Come back anytime.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share. And even if you didn't enjoy it, share anyway. Thank you for listening, and come back to Someone Had to Say It.